Welcome to Our Kids Play Hockey. It's a podcast for hockey families. I'm Christy Casciano, one of your hosts. I'm also a columnist for USA Hockey Magazine and the author of My Kids Play Hockey. I've teamed up with two high-level coaches to share essential tips, strategies, stories. This is a game plan for your families to help navigate your journey on and off the ice. Thanks for finding us on WSYR Plus.
Hello, hockey friends and families around the world, and welcome to another episode of Our Kids Play Hockey. It's Lee Elias, joined by Michael Bonelli. And I always love to say, Christy Casciano Burns is on assignment today, anchoring the news in Syracuse, New York, because, as we've said, she moonlights as a news anchor. Apparently, that's the primary thing. That's what we're being told. So we'll have to get through. But our guest today is especially someone who's spent his career shaping both the player and the person behind the jersey. That is obviously something we love to talk about on the show. Jimmy Law is here, and he is the Director of Sports Performance at TPH Academy, a blended academic and hockey development environment designed to help student athletes reach their full potential on and off the ice. Kind of a dream scenario for your kids. We'll get into that. He's also the founder of Habits of Hockey, a mindset-based training platform built around developing strong personal habits like discipline, leadership, and resilience, all words we love here. And that goes far beyond skating and shooting, as we always try and develop the full person here on Our Kids Play Hockey. He's a great guest for that. Jimmy's work has helped guide hundreds of players, parents, and coaches, just happens to be our audience as well, to think differently about what true development means. And today we're diving into that philosophy. This is one of those episodes, folks, that will have a lot of gold for you and your family. Jimmy, welcome to Our Kids Play Hockey.
Thank you. Thank you for that great introduction. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks. But we pride ourselves on our intros. We do the research. we try and make sure that we do it because the audience wants to know who we're talking to. And you deserve it. All the people that come on as guests have had, distinguished lives in the game. And we really do like to go out of our way to make sure that people know that. But here's one thing we do need to do, Jimmy. But before we get into the stuff I talked about in the intro and the TPH Academy, Habits of Hockey, let's just talk with your story, right? How did you first get into hockey? How did you get to the world of the player and character development? Give us the Jimmy Law origin story.
Sure. Well, I was a first-generation hockey player. Parents knew absolutely nothing about hockey. My next door neighbor, I think I was like 4, as my mom says, 3 or 4, gave me a hockey stick. And, we were just playing in the driveway, happened to be a lefty. So I became a lefty from that point on. My dad had a big deck. So he loves to tell the story of I was hitting the hockey ball around and I would hit the hockey ball off the deck. And he would always have to run downstairs, go and grab it. And I would be dying laughing up top. So, I think from a young age, I just loved hockey and started out playing roller hockey at Iceline, where I currently work. And, roller hockey, I think, is a great intro for ice hockey. It's a lot less expensive, number one, but you get to learn the game and it's fast moving. You get to really develop your stick handling. And so had some great years starting out playing roller hockey, and it overlooks an ice rink. And so I think a part of me was always like, hey, like when can I transition? When can I get out there on the ice? And so I was probably about 8 and convinced my parents to get me in the in-house league, which I don't even think in-house leagues exist anymore. If I'm not mistaken,
back. We'll talk about
they're
that.
few and far between.
Yeah,
coming back.
Hopefully. But yeah, I mean, I played in-house and then B, and then A team, and then AA and AAA high school. And so, just kind of a linear path. Really enjoyed playing hockey, and I love the compete aspect of it. I love learning things, discipline, teamwork, camaraderie, all those things that I think so much of your listeners and so many hockey players out there love the game for. Those same things really impacted the way that I love the game growing up.
So let me ask something, as far as like your development journey, right? And you're getting into player development, character development. Obviously you've lived this, so you probably had a lot of real life experiences. Obviously, I mean, you're as Lee's introduction stated, you've been in a lot of different places and you probably had a lot of great mentors. But where do you realize that in player development, in your own development journey, you know, where have you found or where did you discover that it's more than just hockey skills? Like developing as a hockey player is just like, okay, playing ball hockey in the backyard or playing on the field. You know, where is that development in hockey kind of mesh?
Yeah. Well, I think I was with the Pittsburgh Penguins elite program for 3 years. That was kind of like my second job out of college. And in that environment, it's, there's elite level players. There's guys from that program that have gone to the NHL that are in the NHL right now. And so in that environment, we were working with upwards of like 250, 300 players throughout the week, looking at like 8U all the way up to 18U girls and boys. They have their Excel hockey program, Excel Hockey Academy, which is pretty incredible. It's 100 high school players that attend the local high school local high school. And then they get to train and play after school. But, when you're in that environment, you get to see so many different personalities, so many different ages and, abilities and how they interact with each other. And, one story, I'm not going to name his name, but he's currently drafted to the Sharks. I think this was his 16U year, and he was getting caught up in like, the stupid stuff in a training session when, you should be focusing on what you're doing, your reps, putting intention into everything. And, he kept getting in trouble, kept getting pulled by some of the kids that, they weren't at his ability level. And it got to a point where like, I'm like, hey, like, let's stick around after the session. Like, I just want to have a quick little chat. And it became like, buddy, like your potential is very high. And so you need to understand that this little stuff that you're getting involved into is actually hurting your development. Like it's hurting your performance. You're not doing the best that you can every day. And you're getting sucked down by some of these guys who, they might not play college hockey at any level. And you have the ability, you're talking about USHL draft pick, you have the ability to really do something with hockey if you love the sport. And so I think it's time for you to start maturing a little bit and doing the focus on more of the details. And that point, like, that's the player development that I like to see is like when you notice the guys doing the little things, staying dialed in with that. And so that was the one moment I would say I can point back to.
I think Lee he could probably refresh my memory because I can't remember all these people we speak to all the time. But I mean, it's such a familiar story that we hear from development people that, be in the moment that you're in. Like I think so many kids get caught up, like if they're at a shooting class or skating or in the weight room and they're with younger kids and kids like just you're competing against you. Like, don't worry about like if you're doing a power skating class, it doesn't matter if every single kid on the ice is a mite and you're 18. The skills that you're working on are your skills. Right. And I think it's really hard for an athlete to kind of turn that on. Lee, you probably, I forget who it was, but we just literally just spoke to somebody. It's like, I was on the ice and there was all these kids out here that I was like 1,000 times better than. And I just focused on me and I didn't worry about them. And, I think that's like, tell me if I'm wrong, but the kids you work with, that's hard, right? That's hard for kids to do.
Yeah. They're with each other so often and it becomes like a social environment sometimes when I think we need to separate like, hey, that's for the locker room, that's for before and after the game, not too far ahead, but like when you're in the gym, like be in the gym, be present, focus on what you need to get done, challenge yourself every day and you're going to get better. And then afterwards, you bullshit around and hang out with your guys. Right. Like that's the time when you can have that extra, social aspect of it. But when you're on the ice, when you're in the gym, be present. Like you said, Mike.
I love that we're talking about being present and all this. I always like to bring this up too. We always look at hockey talent. And I mean, like the physical talent is this rare phenomena of this kid's got all the tools to make it. And the amount of players I've seen that have that skill set that don't make it would shock the listeners, right? It's a majority of them. I don't know how else to say it. I mean, they'll get far. Don't get me wrong. You can get far on talent, but you can't get all the way, because the truth is this: the person has to be just as talented as a person as they do as a player, for the most part. And, you know, it's funny to talk about a 16-year-old, because I think, Jimmy, something we don't talk about enough as coaches and as parents is a 16-year-old 16 and they have 16-year-old problems, and they're going to have 16-year-old reactions. And I always love to say it on the show, you know, because we'll get this: how many times am I going to have to tell this kid this thing? And I say probably 500 to 600 times.
Yep.
And I'm not exaggerating that number to you people.
I say that to every 25-year-old on my staff right now.
Right. Well, the funny thing, Mike, the funny thing too is, like, let's be honest, with adults, it's not like we tell adults something one time and they do it either, right? This is something that's true of human beings. Right. Did you get to fix that thing yet, Mike? Anyway, look, I think there's a level of patience that comes with building the person. And here's the other thing, Jimmy, I'll say this too, kind of reverse engineering the conversation a little bit. There have been young athletes that are building talent, but they have the maturity built up. And I look at those kids and I'm like, that kid's likely to do something. Now, and here's the thing, I'm not just talking about hockey, right? Like, that kid's going to be successful at something. All right. And as a coach, obviously, like, we should always be thinking that way of, oh, you're going to do great at something. But in my experience, Jimmy, you talk about your experience. If those two things are not building congruently, you're probably not going to go as far as you want. All right. I'm going to say it again. Talent can take you to a place. But I'm going to say what I said a minute ago. The amount of talent I have seen not succeed in hockey is staggering, and it's because of the maturity piece.
Yeah. And there is so many cases that I've experienced over the last 10 years being around it. You know, there's players that were rated, the best 9-year-old in the country. And then you look at him at 16, 17 years old, like, he's not even playing AAA hockey.
Right.
And then, you know, you got the flip side where a kid, hey, maybe he didn't get private lessons at 6 a.m. before school, and maybe his dad didn't play hockey. You know, they're just learning along the way, but he's got incredible work ethic.
Yeah.
You know, he's a good character kid. Just like we said, he stays present in the moment when he needs to be. And then his development it's limitless at that point. Like, you're going to see those kids get to the highest. Those kids, they'll play at the highest level that their talent will take them. Whatever that may be, they're going to continue to play as long as they want to play.
Well, and be a pro at whatever they want to be a pro at. Right?
Yeah.
Now, I'll say this too. We're talking about present moment awareness, and that's not going to be obviously the theme of the episode. But I tell every listener every time we bring it up, this is something you should dive into as a coach. If you're a player, you should dive into it. If you're a human being, you should dive into it. There is plenty of resources out there about how to be present, to live in the present moment. It is an absolute key to success, and it's free.
and it's really not hard. If you can just channel a little bit of effort into it, it's not hard to do that.
Well, and when you understand that it's a continuous practice, you can't necessarily, it's almost impossible to master it, but it's good to work on it. Things will change. And, you know, I wanted to bring this up too, Jimmy. It's funny. We're from the same area, about 10 years apart, very similar origin stories, very similar locations. And I love that you brought up just playing roller hockey. You know, when I was growing up, it was the same thing. Hockey was booming in the area. And when you drove down a street where I'm from, you'd see basketball hoops and hockey nets. And we all started on the street, right, in that rec area. Or that free play area. And Mike and I joked earlier about the rec leagues coming back, because we know there's some rec leagues that have spawned because of this show, which blows our mind. We're going to have some of those people on, but
that's awesome.
It is really cool. That creative free play is so important, or just not having the pressure of AAA elite professional scouting, showcasing, whatever. Now I do want to talk about this. You started in rec, and now you're at TPH Academy. So I want to explain real quick to the audience what TPH Academy is. Mike, I know you do something similar. Like let's explain what an academic hockey environment is, because again, if I was 16 and someone said, "Hey, look, there's a school that you can do hockey," I would have told my parents, you know, peace out. I'm going to this place. That didn't exist when I was growing up. Go ahead, Mike, and then I want to get into what this is.
Well, Jimmy, what I was going to say too is, like, this is a chance to really talk about, like, when you talk about present moment, but there is the other side that you have to think about, the steps that you have to take for development, right? And I think an academy model and a TPH model and a 203 sports group model, but any of these models that we look at there is the long-term development of the athlete aspect where you're not in the moment, but you have to be able to say, okay, I have a goal.
Yeah.
My parents have a goal for me. I have the means and I have the motivation to put myself into a unique environment, because it is
Right.
unique. It's a high performance environment, and anything you can give everything you do. Just let's bring it out here now, and I'll take some notes.
I'm going to say one more thing to preface this, just on our conversation here, and then Jimmy, it's all yours. Is that
Yeah.
Mike's making a great point, and this is what I always say to my athletes: I want you to have big, lofty goals, but know that the work to accomplish those goals takes place in the now, like right now. Right. So you can't get lost in the future. You can't get lost in the past. You can reflect and you can look forward, but the work takes place right now. And that's how I keep my guys and my girls focused. Like, do not get too far ahead. It doesn't exist. It's not real. So anyway, now that we've gone to the psychological, TPH hockey, go ahead, Jimmy. Tell us a little bit about the academy.
All right. Well, I'll try to unfold this as best I can. I'm probably going to miss something along the way, but so just to start out, TPH Academy is a blended learning environment. It's study, train, and play, and so that's kind of the model that we operate on. Study being first, academics are first. It's a priority of TPH Academy and their core values. Train, you're on the ice 4 days a week, you're in the gym 5 days a week. So you have plenty of opportunities of puck touches, plenty of opportunities to do the little stuff that you don't get to work on throughout the week with a traditional club hockey team or high school hockey team. And then play, right? Like, you have the opportunity to play on the weekends. There's structured flexibility. I know in this world of AAA hockey, like, kids are missing so much school, and it's hard, like, schools don't want to hear about it anymore. They don't want to hear that, Johnny's got to leave Thursday again to go to Minnesota to play another tournament. Like, and there's a limit of, I don't know how many days it is, but there's a limit. And I guarantee there's kids out there that are going over that limit. And so TPH allows student athletes to have that flexibility of doing your work from an online platform. It's all accredited, right? It's not like, they're just sitting on the computer.
Not like Division I college in the 90s is what you're saying. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah. We're taking sewing today. No, go ahead. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. So, so like a typical day for a student athlete here, they get to the classroom, they have an hour of schoolwork, because studies have shown that your brain is turned on the most in the morning. So, they have an hour of schoolwork before they come upstairs to me for a dynamic warm up at 9:30. There's two groups. There's like basically an older group, younger group, high school, middle school. It changes daily, but generally that's what it is. And they're either in the gym for an hour, or they're on the ice for an hour, and then they flip flop. And then they're back to the classroom from 12:30, eat lunch, and then their day is over at 4:00. And so in that day, it changes Monday through Friday. But from my perspective, from the training perspective, we're able to accomplish way more than just lifting. We're able to do the little stuff, the movement, the mobility that's super important, the recovery. We have speed days, we have power days, we have deload days. We have days where we just talk about nutrition and we just slow it down. It's a long season, and these kids in our academy and everywhere, they have a lot of stress. They are balancing a lot in their life, and it's always one thing to the next, one thing to the next. They never really get a chance to slow down and just kind of be a kid a little bit. And we have Riley Cote on our staff, who has been incredible for us. Older guys, people older than me, we know Riley Cote. Like, he was an enforcer. He'd go out there and kick the crap out of people. But he's really reinvented himself and gotten really into yoga and mindfulness. And he's in there every Thursday working with our kids. And it's been awesome. They do breathing exercises, just stuff to calm the mind. Like I said, take an hour of your day and just just be with yourself. Again, be present. That keeps coming up. And then our on ice staff is fantastic. You know, we have junior flyer coaches. We have Matt Duran. He's our head of hockey. And then we have our director. We have head of academics. And so it's a very structured academy. Our location, every location's different, but they all have the same basic structure. And I think that really sets up the athlete to not just be a great hockey player, not just be, you know, very smart, not just be an athlete in the gym, but kind of you get all three pieces, a lot of character development. And it's a small environment. It's you know, different than high school. You're not one of a number. We know a lot about each of our athletes, and we can individualize our program to fit their best needs. And so I think overall, the environment of TPH Academy and a lot of these higher end academies, I think it's a good environment for players, if it's a right fit for them to develop.
You know, we get to see in an academy model, right? It's not like in a classroom model and you're a high school coach and you see your kids for an hour on a Tuesday night, right? And you're trying to develop them, or you're trying to cram in like a training regimen 2 nights a week at a gym up in the you know, up at the rink, and without any, like, you have no idea, oh my God, like that kid had a tough day playing kickball for an hour and a half. Like you can't regulate all that as an athlete. Like, so in the academy model, like you're able to, you know, basically structure that day. And I think I'd really like to dig in more about what you're saying about the actual daily schedule. Like, you know, okay, we got a big tournament coming up. They're leaving on a Friday. We're probably not doing leg day on Thursday night, or we're not like pounding the crap out of the kids in power skating on a Friday morning, or like in other environments outside of this academy type model, right? You don't have the ability to help the athlete train properly, get the right loads, get the right rest, get the right academic time. Because I mean, you know, one of the things I'd like to ask you is, like, you see your athletes, like what kind of athlete thrives do you feel? Because you see the failures too, right? Kids that come in like, this kid's just not, he's failing here because she or he is not ready for this type of environment. But what kind of athletes do you see that come in and say, and they don't have to be elite hockey players, I'm just talking about the athlete, the student athlete. Like, what do you feel are the attributes of those kids that succeed?
Yeah. So this is our second year now. So not a ton of research on this or experience, but what I see today is we kind of have two statuses of student athletes in our academy. We have the AAA players who they want to do anything possible to get to the next level. And so that's why they're in a hockey academy. They can develop their skills on ice, off ice, training, while receiving good academics. And then we have the other side of things where a brick and mortar school maybe just didn't fit that person, that child, you know, and, you know, he's not maybe the most talented player in the world, but he wants to be in an environment that he can succeed in, that he can have fun in while still playing the sport. He can grow and develop just like everyone else and be around like-minded individuals. And so I think regardless of what status or tier you're in, the person that succeeds in an environment like we have, they're motivated, you know, they're committed, they want to do the work, because it's a grind, right? Like showing up to school every day and getting on the ice and getting in the gym and doing your academics, like it's a grind. And so those types of student athletes that are committed and motivated, those tend to succeed the most, and they're willing to embrace challenges. They're willing to step out of their comfort zone. Yeah. And they want to be successful.
I mean, do you think it's unique though too that because you're so embedded with the athletes, like you can really be like, hey, listen, this kid, he really shouldn't work out today. Or you know, we're in a traditional brick and mortar scenario. And I think a lot of this came out in COVID, right? Like all of a sudden people are like, oh my God, my son or daughter, he's thriving in this other environment because they can sit down and do math, and then they could maybe go back to it later on in the afternoon, and they could go outside and play or work out or shoot or do stuff. So it almost like it exposed a lot of people to this other form of learning where a self-motivated kid, a kid that says, I want to get better, can just go to the shooting room or go to the weight room or, go to the video room and not be restricted on a lot of these other time constraints that a traditional model might offer you. But I think in your case, like, you get to see the kids and go, okay, this person can't be doing what we're doing today. We need to put them in a more functional movement space. And you can help them at that. Where maybe if I'm that coach on Thursday night and my kids coming to play for me, I have no idea what their like physical abilities are at that point. I'm just driving them. And I think it's really an important aspect of the academy model that you get to really like individualize an athlete's training and protect them from themselves almost.
Yes. We have 38 student athletes, and all 38 of them are on different schedules, right? The only time we get to see them is 4 to 8 or 8 to 4. Okay. So we don't know what they're doing afterwards. They all have different schedules on the weekends. And a lot of our athletes, actually, I'd say about 50% of them are junior flyers. So they still get team training upstairs in the gym later on with me. And so you're constantly balancing, hey, what's their weekend like? Can we go? Do they have an off weekend? Like, can we hit it hard? Or are they traveling Thursday and they're playing till Monday? Like, let's tone it back. And so we're always communicating with our staff what's best, where the individuals are at. I think 38 is a fairly manageable number where you can keep an eye on 38 and kind of get a good feel of where they're at. So I think in that regard, it's awesome. Like you said, kids will come up, hey coach, like, can I get a core workout? Like, I'm done my schoolwork. Yeah, sure. Like, hey coach, like, I want to do a little extra conditioning. Like, I felt like I was a little tired. Yeah, sure. Like, anything you want, it's here. Like, just ask, and that's what we keep pushing for our student athletes is like, ask for more. We are here for you. Ask for more. You want to shoot? Go ahead. We have a shooting room. You want to get on the ice later? We can do a 3:30 slot. Like, the flexibility is incredible. And basically whatever these athletes want, as long as they ask, they can get it.
Well, I want to talk about that for a second because look, we've always said on this show, there's kind of two versions of our audience. There's like the 14U and down audience, 12U and down audience. There's some crossover there. And then there's the, through U20 audience, which is some older kids. Different conversations at both age groups, right? When you're in the younger half, it's development for all of it, but in the younger half, it's, hey, focus on development, focus on your core skills. When you get older, it's college and juniors and pro and what am I doing here and what am I doing there? A really big theme across successful athletes, Jimmy, is what you just said. Asking for more, asking to be taught, asking for more work. All right. I find a lot of kids are oftentimes worried to ask because in a way, at least from a child's mind, it's, I'm telling them I'm failing at something. The sooner you're a kid, or kids, if you're listening, the sooner you can ask for help. Coaches want to coach. I want you to ask me for help. There's nothing that makes me happier, no matter what age I'm coaching. And I mean this, whether it's a national team or a U10 team, nothing makes me feel better when a player says, can you help me with X, Y, and Z, whether it's whiteboard or off ice or on ice. Coaches want to coach.
Yes. Please
right?
ask. Please ask your coaches.
Right. And I'll tell you this, parents, if your kid goes to a coach and says, hey, listen, I really need to work on my skating. And they go, yeah, I don't have time for that. Get out of there.
Leave.
Right?
Get a new coach.
Yeah. Especially
listen, I mean, because I'm in this environment. I mean, I've seen our academy coaches that are exhausted and they've been on the ice for 5 hours and they've been in the training room. They've been at the classroom. They've been doing shuttle runs. They've been, at the dining hall, and a student athlete will come up to him like, coach, I really am stuck on this power play. I don't really know where to be. I'll watch this guy go into the other room, go on a desk with the kid and geek out on the whiteboard for an hour and a half. And because the kid asked, because like a coach, because that's gold. If you could come to me and say, I am not going to be tired anymore. I'm going to be able to find the energy to make sure that I can help you. And I think that's, in Jimmy's environment, that's what's so great about it. Because that kid can't do that sitting at home at the dining room table as easily as a kid that can say, hey, I really like this coach. I've connected with this person in my ecosystem here. I'm going to ask a question And then when you get that, you're going to ask another question. You're going to ask another question. And those are the kids that move on.
I'm laughing, guys, because here's the truth. If the three of us got paid overtime, we'd be able to buy our own rink.
100%.
With the amount of time we put in. But we love it. We love it. I love teaching. I love coaching. And look, Jamie, I'm sure you're the same way. I was very similar as a player. Like, I was very curious. I wanted to learn. I wanted to work. I'm bringing this up, and I'm going to be a little bit of a journalist here to both of you, okay? Because you're saying that that's one of the separators to be, kind of accepted into this academy is you have to have that curiosity. You have to have the work ethic. You have to have some level of talent. Yet you have to have this, right? You have to have a next level of desire. So I'm going to go a couple places with this. Okay. Number one is I got to always remind the parents that is not something you can create in your kid. It is something you can cultivate. All right. If your kid has the desire, help them cultivate what that means, right? If they don't, I'm sorry, you cannot put that in them, right? You can't create that for them. All right. So for the kids listening, if you're obsessed, and I always say, if you're listening to the show, you probably are, know that's an asset. Now, I have to say this, okay? Jimmy, how many kids did you say you accept? Was it 37?
38.
38. Apologies. And Mike, what's your size usually?
Well, we have a little different model. So we're like 160,
Okay.
but it's a completely different model as far as like the way the kids go on and play. But it's the same. It's in the number, right? In the daily interaction with a coach.
Yeah.
The ratio is the same.
Sure. So this is what I'm going to ask. And again, I'm being a little bit of devil's advocate. What about the 39th kid that doesn't make it? Or what about the parents out there that I know are listening saying, there's no way I can afford that, right? I want to make sure I'm not downplaying these academies in any way when I'm asking this question. I can't stress that enough. Parents, like, if this is something you can do, like, you do it, right? But the kid out there that doesn't have the means, the family doesn't have the means, but has the desire, right? Can we talk about that? While this resource may not be available, this is where it comes down to the same habits. And we'll get into habits of hockey in a minute too, of desire and asking questions and searching information and finding ways to practice, right? Jimmy, when I was growing up, it's not like ice time was just readily available to every kid. There was no academies. Like, we had to find creative ways to practice, whether it was sheet metal on my driveway, shooting pucks off of that, or going to the playground to work out. Keeping in mind, again, when I was growing up, plyometrics was like a brand new science, and now that's like ancient, right? So can we just talk about that for a minute, about how, this is a great resource, but the mindset is irregardless.
Yeah. Well, to your first point, just this popped up in my head. This past week, there's 2 girls that are a part of Method Hockey. They don't go to TPH Academy. They're younger. They're probably like 11 or 12 and 14 or 15.
Method Hockey is a training kind of environment too.
Yeah, Method Hockey is our 4 to 9 o'clock kind of after school training environment. They want to go to TPH Academy so bad that Kirsten, her name is, she came up and said, Coach Jimmo, can you record a video that I'm going to send to my parents and tell me how awesome TPH is? Because me and my sister want to go, and we keep begging our parents, and they just won't let us. I'm like, that is amazing. Of course I'll do the video, but hey, like, let's get in touch. One of our stances, financials will never come between a player wanting to attend our academy.
Love that.
And not. It will we have scholarships out there. We can work with families. We have donors. There's means of ways. If a player in the Philadelphia area were to, I want to go to TPH Academy, my parents can't afford it, the conversation becomes, how can we make this happen?
Well, I'm glad asked this question.
We're not turning away anyone.
Yeah, that's great.
We're gonna keep this on Jimmy's interview, but I think if no, it's okay. No, but I think, I think the real question too, and because I think if parents, and Jimmy, you're in the same world as us, right? This whole East Coast, like churning hockey environment. I think when a lot of parents go down, I call it the parent calculator, like sit down and really look at what you're spending anyway.
Right.
And then think about the desire your child has for an in-person hockey development experience with this educational model that doesn't fit everyone, but could fit your child's needs. A lot of times you'll find when you do the math and you do the hours of reps and you do all the training, all the stuff that you're doing now, all the one-offs that you have to pay for anyway. When you start doing the math and you start breaking down travel and you start breaking down all the, food and gear and everything, it starts to come pretty damn close.
Right.
Like it really starts to say like, oh, okay, well now I'm in that world of I'm paying this already. What are the pros and cons of my son or daughter being in a different environment? So I don't think there's, but I would agree with Jimmy too. It's almost like the coach that wants kids to ask. If you don't ask and you don't have a desire and you don't, it's just like any college, right? The kids that are applying to colleges, I want the best kids in my academy because ultimately I want to show that I produce the best kids. So if you're going to be a kid that's going to showcase me as an academy, and you're going to be a kid that's going to come in and make me look good because you're an unbelievable athlete and a great person and somebody that's going to go to another, a higher academic institution in college, and somebody's going to say, where'd you come from? Oh, I came from that academy. That's a kid that I want because that's a kid that's going to showcase me. We will do anything possible to get that kid. If you're going to be the kid that writes a check and sits in his room and doesn't get up for practice and is always late for meals, it's the same kid that you wouldn't pick on your 16U national team. Same kid.
Yep, 100%. It's life skills that these kids are learning in this environment. And I love how, Mike, you didn't say they could get to the next junior level or the next college level playing hockey. Like they will be set up in life, in life. Not everyone is going, a lot of people are not going to make it in hockey, and everyone's hockey career ends at some point. We need to be preparing these student athletes for what comes after hockey and what happens along the way.
Well, you guys see now why I asked the question, right? Because I wanted you guys to explain that. And I did Mr. Miyagi you guys a little bit there because I knew there would be a good answer, right? Because I can see the parents being like, oh, this is beyond AAA. This is something completely different. But the truth is this, it's not, right? It is selective, but it's a certain type of kid that has a certain type of environment. Mike, I love that you brought up the financials because I'm one of those guys. Follow me here, everybody. Like I'm not criticizing anybody for looking at gas prices. All right. But most people that complain about gas prices, like you're saving 45 to 50 cents at the pump, but you fill your tank up. Right. But we'll go immediately to Starbucks and get a $6 coffee.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's reality. We all do it.
My father used to drive to a town 10 minutes away because the gas was 10 cents cheaper. I said, what the hell? I said, you're killing me. I said, but you're right. But let's look at do apples to apples sometimes, like you're saying.
That my point is I'm guilty of this. All right.
Yeah.
We all
no
do
doubt.
it. But it's like when you take a step back and go, okay, let's, like you said, Mike, let's really look apple to apples. It's there. Jimmy, I also love that you brought up because it would have been the same conversation in my house of like, you want to go to hockey school? And I mean, first off, if I was 16, I'd be in your school. I'll tell you that right now because I love that stuff. I want to bring this up too for the second part of that question I asked though. And I think it's important for everyone to hear this. The kids that are accepted in the academy, they were doing this stuff anyway in terms of the obsession, the dedication, the work. Can we talk about that real quick? Because I think it's important for the audience to understand you're not creating the mindset, you're cultivating it again, but they're coming in with that mindset. You're not just taking anybody that goes, yeah, I want to be better and hockey school sounds fun. These kids were doing it anyway, right? And I think it's important to explain that because if parents and kids, if you want to be on the trajectory for something like this, the work actually starts way sooner at that below U12 time period, right? Because it's like you're not going to just snap your fingers at 16 and be like, well, no, I'm a super academic all-star now, and I really want this, right? It's like, right, Jimmy? Am I wrong in any of this?
No,
yeah,
you're 100% right, and we've tightened up our admissions process a lot because we found in year one, it was the new shiny toy. Kids are like, oh, I don't have to go to brick and mortar school. I don't have to go to school every day and I can play hockey. Like that sounds great. Like, yeah, let's sign me up. But then we found that it's not for everyone. And just not wanting to go to school and play hockey every day is not enough to make it in a hockey academy. You need to have all the stuff that we've talked about, the internal motivation, the desire to get better every day, the ability to wake up and work. I think that's important. Like, adults, kids, doesn't matter. Like, we all got to wake up and work, and some days we don't want to, but it's that discipline that comes into play of like, hey, I'm going to do it today. I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. And the best that you can give is always enough.
100%.
Yeah, and I think the reality too is like some parents are going to look at this and say, and they think they can jam a square peg in a round hole, and it no matter how much vetting you do for an athlete, you're going to get those athletes that just don't fit into the system because they, it was really driven by their parents, right? Or another, there was another aspect of this. Now, there are some players that come in that you would never think would thrive in the environment. And all of a sudden at the end of the year, like, wow, that player, like that steel sharpens steel mentality helped that player. Like, and it's a delicate balance. It's the elite kids that are already very good. You have to convince them that other kid that's on the ice is not affecting their development, and it's not holding them back. And I think that's what people, like our beginning conversation, sometimes those athletes like come down to the level of the kids they're on the ice with, and that's them. That has nothing to do with the person, building the environment, which probably brings me to my, I guess another question because of, who you are, right? Like the habits of hockey and that mindset, developing habits of hockey and what it takes, like what you use to approach development. And I think that all goes into kind of what you're doing at TPH in your own personal life and your own personal development. But can you talk about a little bit about, what are a core habit that you look for or want to develop in an athlete, whether in an academy or a travel team or just a kid that's going day to day that just wants to get better?
Yeah. I always like to say I wear a lot of hats and they have different logos, but like I'm always coaching the same way. Like I am still the same person, and I have the same goals for everyone that I work with. But habits of hockey really has been an evolution. If you look back on my my Instagram, it started out with like motivational quotes and stuff that I found interesting, to help me along the way, quote wise. And then I was like clipping NHL videos and like pointing out like how the goal was scored, or like not necessarily like the dangle snipe, but like the stuff that isn't really on social media that like creates the play. And so I was pointing out like those like on ice habits of hockey. And then, I got my nutrition certification. I was like, actually nutrition is super important for these kids to learn. And so I started doing like nutrition consultations with families on like, the 14, 15-year-old kid is not going out buying groceries. Like it's the parents. And so the kids end up eating what the parents make or buy. And so like it actually became like a little bit of a therapy between like, hey mom, like I want to eat better. And then the mom is like, well, da, 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 and they go back and forth. And I'm just sitting there like, all right, let this play out. Like we're getting somewhere here, but like, giving just like a plan of like, all right, child, you say you want to eat healthier and you will eat the food. Mom, will you cook the food? Will you buy this food so player can get better? All right, we're on the same page. Check back in a couple weeks. Like that's how initially it started, through hockey videos and nutrition. At the time I was still doing strength conditioning. So 10 years of training athletes, that's natural to me. Like there's an online program that I work with. It's super easy for me to, write training programs based off of where they're at, hotel, what equipment they have, where they're at in the season, all that stuff. That's easy. But the X factor that really like capped off my habits of hockey is like the mindset piece. And that's something that I've really worked on in the last 3 years. And so the 3 pillars that I talked about are training, nutrition, and mindset. Now I've developed 6 core values of athletes. And, when I work with players one-on-one, we develop these core values, and every player is a little bit different. It's unique, right? But the 6 core values are work ethic, accountability, preparation, consistency, focus, and character. And I'm convinced that whether you're playing hockey, whether you're doing chess, whether you're a CEO of a company, whether you're doing podcasting, if you can dial in on your work ethic every day, if you can be accountable, if you can prepare ahead of time to be ready to go, if you can be consistent with your work, if you can bring a level of focus that elevates not just you, but everyone else in the room. And then if you can bring an element of character, do the little things when no one is watching, like that's where I think the real magic happens with Habits of Hockey. And I've had a lot of success, hammering in on those core values.
Isn't it ironic that the actual program that we bring our kids into eliminates all of that? I mean,
what do you mean by that?
The way we schedule youth hockey and the way we put kids into these environments, if you don't have somebody like you, or you're not following these principles, or you don't have an education about all the, like, how important these things are, you don't get enough sleep, you don't get mentally focused, you don't eat properly, you're missing a lot of school.
Yeah.
You probably have we teach our kids at a young age that, oh, you made the AAA team, so all of a sudden your character, like you're a little, you think you're a little better than the other kids sitting in the room next to you. Like all of these things that we do, we have to fight to get to where you want to be. And that's what's so great about, I think, Habits of Hockey and understanding those core values, is that ultimately we've got to get our kids like back to that. Yeah. If we want to succeed. And I think the road is, we think, oh, we just got to go to a couple of AAA tournaments in Chicago and my kid's going to get better. No. You have to have all these other core values, or none of this, or your 95-mile-per-hour shot and your stick handling ability means nothing.
Absolutely
like this
nothing.
will not help you. And I think that's where a lot of parents get lost in the shuffle, because they neglect all those other things, thinking that the path is something else, and it's actually not.
Yep, 100%.
Well, I'm going to comment on this too. So obviously, Jimmy, Mike's talking about the larger hockey environment, right? We always say that, you're not crazy, the hockey world's crazy. That's kind of the moniker here. But the truth too, and I always like to bring this up, and I think we would all agree as coaches here, it's really not that hard to implement some of this stuff, right? And Mike, you're 100% correct about the environment, but I wish we would see more hockey directors and hockey coaches come together over, hey, listen, give your kid this basic nutritional packet or one pager about eating.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. It's our fault. I'm not saying it's not our fault. I'm just saying this is the fact it is.
Don't be a pessimistic Connecticut, New Yorker right now. I'm being positive here. No, I'm saying listen, I just, I don't know why more hockey directors don't advise their coaches or hand their coaches, look, here's a one pager on nutrition. Here's a one pager on sleep. Here's a one pager on appropriate workouts for the age. Right. And just I'm not saying you need to manage this stuff at younger levels or higher levels, but if we're not providing the information, people will go for what's easy. It is easier to go to McDonald's after a game than it is to find a healthy meal. It is. And parents, for those of you with multiple kids, I really get it. I understand.
Well, because you didn't prepare. That's what principle is.
Yeah, you got to plan and prepare ahead of time.
You guys are reading my mind, right? Habits of Hockey, right? Get the information. It's out there. By the way, habitsofhockey.com. We should throw that out there real quick. All right. My point is,
we are now accepting clients.
yeah, but it's just guys.
Just ask, right? Just ask.
Just
ask.
The information's out there, and I gotta say it. This goes so far beyond hockey. All right, Jimmy, we talk sometimes about teaching your kid to read the label on a side of a thing in this grocery market. It's not hard to teach a kid. Yeah, if sugar's at 145% of your daily value, don't pick that up. We're not getting that. Yeah. Right. Or if if you can't read every ingredient on there, these are little things that make huge differences in these kids' lives and your lives as well, parents. And look, I hear it all the time. Well, what do you expect me to add more time to the day to make this food? No, I'm asking you just to take a moment to just look. All right. Because the truth is this, if you do not build the habits, you said it actually, Jimmy, it doesn't matter what we're talking about, hockey or anything. If you don't build these habits, you're setting yourself up for a harder road. Okay. And I think we could say it. The most successful people I know, they have habits. Even the ones that look crazy have some form of a habit built up.
Right? 100%. Yeah. And one of my favorite quotes is, action comes before motivation.
Right.
So what does that mean? Oh, I'm going to start on Monday. I'm going to start the diet on Monday. I'm going to work out on Monday. That doesn't mean anything until you take action.
Right.
You got to take action until you're in the weight room doing the dynamic warm up, about to lift and train.
Yeah.
Your motivation doesn't mean anything.
Right.
And so one of the key pieces of framework for Habits of Hockey is after every single call, we have actions. We have clear, attainable actions that I expect the players to follow through on and to work on.
Right.
And they are never the same. I've worked with upwards of 50 players. They are never the same. It's always, hey, I want to decrease my screen time. Okay, how are we going to do that? This week, I want you to blah, blah, blah.
Right.
It always comes from them, and there's always actions there, and the actions are what creates the magic.
I'll tell you two things on that I love, right? Is that one, everyone knows, well, maybe you don't all know this. You're not always going to be motivated. You're not always going to have the drive of I want to do this, especially if it's something you don't want to do, right? I think when people accept that motivation is not the key, right? It's actually a bonus if you have it, right? You're not always going to want to do it. The other thing too is one of the best quotes I ever heard, and you can apply this to a lot of different things, was I knew someone who wanted to lose some weight. But they were eating a lot, right? you do the math on that. And a coach said to this person, you have to be hungrier to lose the weight than you're hungrier to eat. And that really clicked with me in the way it was said of like, yeah, there has to be more desire to do what you don't want to do than doing what feels good. And again, you can apply that to anything. It's not just weight loss, right?
Yeah, that's mind over matter.
Right. That's 100% correct, right? And I love that it was said that way because we all hear mind over matter, right? And it's like you can apply that. Like, oh, okay, I want to get more endurance. Then when you're hungrier to work out than you are to sit on the couch, like you can apply that to anything. And I think it's a great way for especially younger people to kind of hear it in a different way. But you're 100% right about mind over matter, Jimmy. Like we're talking a lot about methodology, habits. Jimmy, I want to ask you about coaching, right? Because we talk about this all the time on the show, that the truth is this: there's a lot of volunteer coaches out there. We always say God bless every single one of you for putting in the time. But there are few great coaches out there. I think we have a lot of listeners who aspire to be great coaches. What in your mind separates great youth coaches from average ones? How do we evolve that? I would also, I gotta say this too, adversely, I don't think there's as many bad coaches out there. I mean, they're out there as people think too. I think a majority of coaches are volunteer. I don't want to use the word average, but they're volunteer coaches, all right? They're volunteering their time. For someone who wants to aspire to be great, what do you think the separators are?
Yeah, well, I think there's a lot of levels to that. Like when you say a great coach, like, there's a million ways to coach, as you know. I think you can be a great coach and not have any hockey experience, to a certain level. Like you're not going to be coaching in the NHL or college, but like with the kids, like you can be a great coach and not have a lot of hockey experience.
Agreed.
I think what separates an average from great, generally speaking, is like the level of care. Like how much do you care about your team or about the individuals on your team? Are you planning practices the right way? Like, are you watching the games? Are you seeing the skills that the kids need to work on or the team needs to work on, whatever that might be? Are you taking the time to care enough to design your season in a way that facilitates development from point A, beginning of the year, to point B, end of the year, and what are you doing in between? And there's a million different ways to get to go between that. But I think generally speaking, as long as you care and you can connect with the players in a way that they trust you, then I think you're going to be, you're going to be an impactful coach on their development. Whether you're Pee-wee, squirt, bantam, midget, whatever. If you care about the athlete, you care about the team, and you can find ways to connect with them, whatever that might be, I think you're putting yourself in a pretty good position to be a great coach.
Jim, it's a phenomenal answer. And I'll say too that I've said this on the show before, and I'm saying this to the coaches listening and the parents, right? I think a lot of parents don't realize how much we care about their kids and how often we're thinking about their kids after the practices, after the games. And so I'd say to the coaches, if you fall into that category, you're doing it right. All right. Now, I also want to say what you said, though, Jimmy, which is there's a step above that of the full season view and planning and doing great drill prepping and understanding where your kids are at and meeting them where they're at. To me, that's like a big step forward, right? But if you care about the kids you're coaching, you are probably a great coach starting that. And I love that you mentioned that. Sorry, Mike, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, you cut me off. I think it's a great explanation of
Great
what a great coach can be, and I think the modern coach too is actually get a little I get a little offended by being when you call people a coach when they're just really a manager, and a coach is something different. I mean, yes, you might be on the bench, you might be doing practices, but you're really not a coach. You're a manager. You're just somebody that's managing the team. I think coaches that care and can evolve and can understand like today's athlete, and not that they're softer, but they're they just these athletes have the same information as you as a coach. Like they can look up whatever the hell they want. Like when I played, I have no idea. I'm like, I don't know. Coach said this.
He said this.
I had no reference to anything. Like I couldn't see a million different coaches on Instagram. I couldn't go to Habits of Hockey and say, well, that guy is a pro guy. And he's saying that, and my coach is saying this. Like, so it is harder. But I think at the end of the day, if you care, they don't. What's the saying in USA Hockey has that great saying, right? That they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And that is a core value of anybody that's working with kids or anybody that's trying to learn.
Mike, I'm laughing, and Jimmy, because when I was growing, just on that story you just told, Mike, I remember when I was a kid watching Eric Lindros run over a guy on a face-off. Right now, NHL hockey in the 90s, that's my education.
Yeah.
So next game, I ran a guy over on the face-off, and I'll never forget. Lindros did it.
That's awesome.
I didn't get a penalty, but I remember the whistle blew pretty quick, and the ref came up to me and he goes, "Son, you can't run a guy over on the face-off." I'm going, but Eric Lindros just did this. He goes, "You're not Eric Lindros." That's what he said.
You're not Eric Lindros.
But that's how we learn. We kind of had to. You learn the way you can learn. Now we say it all the time. You got to vet everything, but kids, you've got unlimited access to resources that way more than any of us had growing up. Use it, but don't trust everything. Obviously, you vet it. Go to habitshockey.com. Don't just go to like YouTube influencer number 75 says this, that, and this. All right. Because you got to be careful. Anyway, sorry.
And again, real quickly to your point, like if you see something like that and kids out there, like if you're like, hey, like, is this real? Is this right? Again, ask your coach. Like your coach might be like,
please ask. Yeah.
That's great. Like adopt that. Or he's like, hey, let me explain why this might not be true.
Yeah.
Like continually ask your coach for advice. And that's why we're here. That's why all coaches are here to mentor for the most part, 95%.
Yeah.
We want to mentor. We want to give back to the game because it gave us so much.
100%. That resonates with me and Mike so much there, Jimmy. And I'll say too, like, great example. I like to give examples. Guy who was just at Iceland, friend of the show, Satoshi Takano was on the show.
Yep. He came and visited me.
Right. And we were talking about breaking down plays, and we did this really great one with McDavid where on the highlight, all you see is him come over the blue line, get the puck, go around three people and score. It looked amazing. But when you break the play down, you see the play actually started very deep in his zone. It's a set play. He charged up the ice. They knew what they were doing. There was so much more to that where he was at full speed by the time he received the puck. And I think if you don't see that, this is how you get kids trying to deke three people from a standstill position in the zone, which is not correct.
You're not right? Connor McDavid.
You're not Connor yet. I'll say yet, right? No, you're not Connor McDavid. And even if you want to be, you got to see the full 360 view of that play. So this is actually a good transition point, Jimmy. Let's talk about parents. Okay. Show's called Our Kids Play Hockey. So we're always talking to a lot of parents. They're juggling schedules, lots of academics, expectations, financials. What advice do you have for them in the sense and the overviewing mindset of we don't want to burn our kids out? And this is the truth. Parents are probably the leading cause of burnout or contributor, contributor of burnout to their kids, right? So how can parents support that journey better? And I'll remind you, you have an audience that is leaning forward right now, very interested in your answer because they want to do the best they can.
Yeah, well, I think we might have to schedule another podcast and just go over a bunch of different topics on parental advice. But Let's see. I think you said it, Lee. I think support them. Like, just support them. Enjoy the ride.
Right.
Transport them, drop them off, ask them how practice went, how did the game go, hear from them, listen to them, rather than try to talk about other teammates or other players or themselves, what the player could have done better. Hey, this play, that play does not matter.
Right.
The coaches, don't talk about the coaches in the car ride home. Don't talk about other players or their parents in the car ride home, because the kids are listening and they absorb everything that you say. And so I would say ask more questions.
Yeah.
Ask more questions, open-ended questions where they need to think about, how they played or how they felt during the game. How'd you feel out there? What could you have done better? Like that question right there, what could you have done better, is not telling them anything. It's letting them think about the game. And it doesn't need to be right in the car ride home, right? Like,
should never be in the car
24-hour
ride
rule.
home.
We have coaches and parents. Like,
Yeah.
let's implement a 24-hour rule with the kids too. And maybe there's a certain level of accountability on the kids' part, and the parents set this up. Hey, like, after games, go home and journal. Like, I just want you to write down like 3 things about the game that you did well, 3 things that you can do to improve yourself. We're not going to talk about them, but I want you to write them down so you can reflect and continue to get better. It's all about progress. So I think supporting them is number 1. Enjoy the ride, ask more questions. And one of my favorite lines I tell I play Thursday night men's league at Iceline. And so all the dads now have kids, and I'm like, just tell them you loved watching them play. I loved watching you play today.
Yeah, that's my favorite line. We did an episode, it's our most popular episode ever, Jimmy, which is 3 things you should say to your kids before every game and practice. And it was, I love you no matter what happens out there. I love watching you play, and do your best and have fun. And it's really the support to your wording that your kid needs. They need your support. They need you to be somewhat of a safe place to land, because trust me, they're dealing with all of the emotions. And
yeah,
we get some parents say, well, my kid doesn't even care. So, I don't have to tell you this. That's okay too. Like, they're kids, right? Like, if they don't care, they're telling you something.
Yeah. Is this what you want to do?
Right.
Like, just a general question, like not being like, what's the word, targeting or whatever, but like,
yeah,
hey, like, is this something that you enjoy doing? Like, be honest, have an open conversation.
Always.
If that's the case, if they're seeing that.
And we always say the car ride home is not the time to be coaching. The car ride's not for coaching. Like, let them be. And if your kid's thinking about Fortnite after the game, that's absolutely normal for them to not think about what they just did. I always say this too. Think about when you were a kid and you came home, and if your parents were like, how was school today? Right? Like, the last thing you wanted to talk about after school was school. And I catch myself doing that. Hey, because the truth is this, and this is the upside of it. I just want to have a conversation with my kid. I love my kids. I want to have a conversation, but it's every once in a while, like, how was school today? I'm like, you know what? That's not a great question.
Yeah. No, right? No. Ask good questions.
Great questions demand great answers. Like, tell me something amazing that happened to you today. Like, that's going to tell, oh, well, this happened at lunch and this and that. How was math today? Like, I don't really want to talk about math after school.
That's completely it. Enjoy the ride with them, support them, and just be there for them.
No, I love it, Jimmy. I know we're getting up on time here, so I'm going to kind of jump ahead to the end here about, the future of youth hockey development. Again, I was born in the early 80s. You were born in the early 90s. Mike was born at some point during the 20th century. No, he's up there.
Long time ago. Think about
over the decades, training development has changed so much. Easiest example, mental health was a weakness 30 years ago. Now it's a strength. I've seen old NHL footage of guys smoking while they were working out in the 70s. Yep. It's changed a lot. You're super deeply connected here, right? With players, educators, organizers across the country. Where do you see this going over the next decade, right? Well, like what's going to evolve? Like, do you think there are things that are coming that maybe are not mainstream yet that we should all be paying attention to?
Well, I think it's a hard question to answer because hockey is moving so fast. And especially with this, like at the AAA level, the new NDL league, like that's going to change a whole lot. But and then like you talk about development, like when everyone is doing more and more and more, like how are you going to separate yourself?
Right.
What are you going to do? Everyone gets on the ice 5 times a week now, and they travel and they do this. Now there's a hockey academy in every small city. Like, what are you going to do to separate yourself? And that could be a lot of different answers. But I think when we talk about hockey development, it becomes more of like a personal development. Like,
right.
I'm going to allude to habits of hockey, obviously, but like it becomes to personally develop the person who you are. Right. Like, and when, I know this for a fact, when colleges and junior hockey teams are recruiting 15, 16, 17-year-olds, they ask questions like, how is he off the ice? What is his family like?
Right.
How is he as a kid? What is he like in the locker room? What is he like on the bench? And that can make or break a career right there. If you haven't worked on the personal side of who you are as a person, and you're yelling at teammates and you're taking bad penalties, and no one wants to be like, you could lose a spot on a team that you have immense talent for, and then you get stuck playing on a team. You should never be there. Like, you should be at the top. You have that talent, but what you didn't work on is the person that you are.
I love that answer. And just to support you in that answer, we've had guests on, I think of JB Spizzo right now, who's been on, worked at the NHL level. And he said when they were trading for players, when he was working with the Florida Panthers, he would ask, how does he treat the equipment manager? Tell me about his experience with the equipment manager. This is an NHL trade, right? The talent's clearly there, right? Yeah. How does he treat the assistant coaches? These are the questions he would ask when looking at it. In an NHL room, there's 55 people working on that trade, but that's part of the process. And I love that what you said too, and I want to close it on this too, is I always feel like we have to say this, right? The goal of youth hockey is to develop a person, right? Like the hockey is always the bonus, always, right? The youth hockey journey is your opportunity to develop a well-rounded human being to be successful at something. And to quote my man, Macho Man Randy Savage, like the cream will always rise to the top, right? If you've got the talent, you've got the desire, it will take care of itself, right? I know people who throw so much money at this thinking I'll buy my kid's way into the top, and it rarely works out. It does help, but it rarely works out. Right? Go ahead, Mike.
I think Jimmy could back me up by this too. So having been, at the national program and being involved in so many, pro level kind of programs and being around real high performers that, back in the day, like it took you a long time to find out a kid was a jackass, when you recruited them. And now, like in the hockey development world, we all know everything about every kid. If I need, like, I can literally go on Instat and see every single 9-year-old right now in the world that I would love to talk to at some point. But what I can't do is I need to find out exactly what you're talking about. Like, what I can't see on film is how they react to their teammate on the bench, what they're like in the locker room, how they treat their parents. What do they clean their own meals up? Do they clean their plate after a meal? Like the person that I need to put in my environment, I can't tell by video. And I think, that hockey development piece that Jimmy's talking about is it's so hard for some of us as parents, right? It's because it's everything else for a player's character other than their skill, because everyone knows their skill. Everyone sees it at the NHL level. There's thousands of hours of film on any player, but what you need to know is those little details. Like, I'm picking this kid, I'm investing a lot of money and I'm investing a lot of time, and they have to fit into my environment. Who is he? What can they do for me? And how are they going to react when it's not going their way or when it is going their way? And I think that's really a nuance of where the modern game is right now.
Yeah, that's a key point, Mike. With Instat, scouts can watch players at any level from anywhere at any time. Like you could stay up all night watching players. But we talk about good coaches. I think a good scout is someone who goes to the game and talks to them after the game. Then you get the character. Talk to the coach, talk to the kid, because you care about the player that you're looking to draft or select.
I don't think I ever recruited a college kid when I was on the road that I didn't watch in practice. I don't remember ever just taking a kid off of scored 3 goals, had 2 assists, and got the game-winning goal. I would just wait up next morning, go to practice, watch the kid walk into the rink, and say, okay, this is the kid I want. Like, this is a kid that I can deal with, win or loss.
I'll end that, Mike, with the national team. When we pick players, like, I've turned down talented players because they do not they do not meet the character piece, right? And we ask, to your point, Jimmy, we ask a lot of questions that surprise them. Things like, what does trust mean to you? Tell me what a great team environment looks like to you, and how do you contribute to that? If I get 3-word answers to those questions, like, you're telling me something, right?
Yeah.
Now, if I get a paragraph, you're telling me something, right? So
speaks louder than just a whole paragraph.
Right. And you know, to be cliche and quote a movie, I'm not looking for the best players, Craig. I'm looking for the right ones. Like, that is a very true statement across the board. But Jimmy, what I've loved about this episode, man, I'm so happy you came on, was that, you know, it's so good for the listeners to hear, even at the highest levels, right? The elite academy level, all of these core habits, all of these core mentalities, all the thing about building a person, it's still true. And that's one of the reasons we love doing the show, is because we're able to kind of open up the eye on what is going to help you and your family become successful, not just in hockey, but in life, right? Yeah. And I really appreciate you sharing not just the TPH Academy stuff, but also the Habits of Hockey stuff. Again, habitsofhockey.com. You should be running there now. We'll link it in the description, about what can make a successful person and a successful athlete. And I'm glad that we talked about coaches a little bit too, because that care piece, I love that you brought that up, because it just goes to show. I think sometimes there's this misconception on academies, and Mike, you deal with this too, that they're just after my cash. They don't really care about my kid. They care so much. They care so much about your kid.
Yes.
Right. That's why they're doing it.
The good ones do.
Fair enough.
Do your research. Do your research.
Yeah. We've talked about that on the show too. There are red flags out there. Like, no, just pay your dues and I'll be happy. Mike, did you have any final words before I close this out?
No, that's the key. I mean, especially that kind of, you have to produce the best kids, because if you're recruiting the best kids, but if we accept you, you know, we want to develop you. Like, if you come into us, our obligation is to make sure you have a great experience. And I think if the thought process is, anytime you are going to take somebody's money and their time and the resources that you want to provide, then you better work your ass off to make sure that kid has a great experience. And that's different for every kid. And that's the juggle of all these type of programs, is you have to find good, compassionate, caring coaches that, you know, want to make sure that they look good because your kid looks good.
Yep. And there's one quote that I wanted to get in here at some point, is one size does not fit all. One size rarely fits any. Right. And everyone is different. And so I think the more you can individualize the development and programming along the way, you're going to set them up for success.
I love it, Jimmy. And trust, but verify. That's the other one we'll say. But dude, that's a great way to end the show. And can I just say, Jimmy Law is a great name. What a great hockey name, right? Who are you playing against today? Jimmy Law's out there. Laws come out today. So no, Jimmy, thanks so much for joining us today. This has been a tremendous episode.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys. I really appreciate it.
All right, for those of you listening, again, if you want more information, tphacademy.com or habitsofhockey.com if you want to learn more about what Jimmy does and the academy is part of. But that's going to do it for this edition of Our Kids Play Hockey. Remember, you can always email us, team@ourkidsplayhockey.com, if you have questions, concerns, comments, anything you want us to talk about on the air, or check out the link accompanying the episode in the description. You can text to us. Again, we can't text back. Make sure you leave your name and your hometown if you want, and let us know what you want us to talk about. But for Jimmy Law, for Mike Benelli, I'm Lee Elias. We'll see you on the next edition of Our Kids Play Hockey. Have a great day, everybody.
See you guys.
Download the WSYR Plus app on your TV to stream News Channel 9 for free. Just go to your smart TV, search WSYR Plus in the App Store, and download to start streaming today.